Robbery, a calculated campaign of theft, and a courtroom bracing for a defendant that needed absolutely no lawyer to look intimidating. The justice system, by its very nature, demands a perpetrator, a victim, and a reckoning. But what happens when the perpetrator doesn't speak our language? The reckoning exposes the fragile, often absurd boundaries of human law.
The year is 2008. We aren't dragging some medieval legal oddity from the dusty archives of the Dark Ages. This is the digital era, a time of advanced jurisprudence and modern logic. Anchoring this story in 2008 creates a stark, undeniable contrast, proving that humanity's obsession with legalizing nature is a deeply embedded, unshakable feature of our modern social architecture. The setting is the Municipal Court of Bitola, Macedonia, where justice faced a profoundly unprecedented test. A literal, massive, fur-covered beast was formally standing trial. The accusations weren't trivial. This was a series of calculated robberies, a sophisticated intrusion into private property, executed flawlessly by a brown bear.
The victim was a local beekeeper who found his property and his very livelihood locked in a state of perpetual siege. Understand, this was not a random, one-time raid born of desperate winter hunger. It was a relentless, systematic campaign of theft. The bear targeted his hives with a rhythmic precision that felt almost calculated, striking repeatedly, ignoring boundaries, and completely dismantling the beekeeper's life's work.
Desperation inevitably breeds defense. In a frantic attempt to reset the bear's behavior, the beekeeper deployed a slow, rhythmic escalation of deterrence. Step 1, he illuminated the pitch-black woods with high-powered floodlights. Step 2, he blasted high-energy music to violently shatter the dead silence of the night. Step 3, the installation of aggressive noisemakers, transforming his tranquil apiary into a blinding, deafening sensory fortress.
But the sheer, unstoppable force of the suspect simply could not be reasoned with. The blinding lights would blaze, the music would scream, and then, abruptly, the power would cut, or the sheer instinct of the animal would override the chaos. The bear inevitably returned for the honey. It ignored the deterrents as if they were nothing more than a dinner bell.
With the apiary devastated, the battleground shifted seamlessly from the dark, ravaged woods into the stark, fluorescent lighting of the municipal court, birthing a true courtroom anomaly. The judge wasn't merely evaluating a simple insurance claim for property damage, they were presented with a direct criminal case against the animal itself.
This legal proceeding was, by definition, an animal trial, a formal process where a non-human creature is prosecuted for a crime. It's a concept that somehow survived the Dark Ages, lingering in our modern statutes as a testament to our unshakable obsession with legalizing nature. We simply cannot resist the urge to impose human order on a chaotic, indifferent natural world.
The contrast in outcomes reveals the sheer paradox of this courtroom anomaly. Consider a human thief standing before this unyielding judge, they would inevitably face a cold prison cell. But a roaming protected bear? That forces a sovereign government to open its checkbook. Looking at undeniable witness testimony and destroyed hives, the judge formally convicted the roaming bear of theft.
The evidence was absolute. The verdict was guilty. But here is the exact moment the logic fractals. The legal framework begins to violently break down under the immense weight of its own rigidly defined rules. A guilty verdict demands a punishment. It requires a restitution that the perpetrator must personally provide.
Yet, the defendant possessed a status no human thief could ever claim, shielding it entirely from traditional incarceration. The brown bear was designated a protected species under Macedonian law. This designation creates an absolute legal shield, elevating the animal far above the standard consequences of its actions.
Because of this protected status, the creature was legally classified as a ward of the state. That means it's an entity or an asset that the government is legally required to maintain and take absolute responsibility for. The law deeply intertwines the concepts of wild predator and government liability. The state owns the protection, and therefore it owns the asset.
The victim, simply seeking justice for his destroyed livelihood, was caught in a massive administrative paradox. This was a fatal structural glitch in the system. You cannot sue a bear for money, and you cannot imprison a protected asset without violating the very laws designed to protect it.
The ultimate legal anomaly materialized in the financial fallout. The bear was officially on record as a convicted felon. However, since the criminal belonged to the state, The court ruled that the government was strictly liable for the actions of its fur-covered property. The sovereign government of Macedonia was ordered to pay the extensive damages caused by the beast.
The bear of 2008 walked back into the dense peaks of the national park, a legally guilty creature that would never spend a single day in a cell. It leaves a lingering thought echoing in the empty courtroom. Have we stopped trying to cross-examine nature, or just changed who pays the bill when the natural world refuses to obey our laws?
The intersection of legal authority and uncontrollable natural forces is a vast, bizarre landscape where the human desire for order clashes violently with the reality of the wild. It's a world where a bear commits a felony in the digital age, and somewhere else entirely, a church is formally excommunicating a swarm of locusts to save a harvest. The legal architecture remains, always waiting for the next creature to cross the line.